I sold $162,000 on eBay in 2023 part-time, and I'm going to show you how I did it and break down all the numbers for you. So while that number does sound like a big number, there's a ton of fees, a ton of costs that go into that, and at the end of the day, the profit on that is going to be much, much, much lower. So don't let these big numbers fool you from other YouTubers, other eBay sellers. These big numbers mean nothing as far as profit goes. I also said that I did this part-time. I'm going to leave that up to your guys' interpretation. I do have another job, so I always consider this part-time since it's not the only thing that I'm doing and I'm not doing it 100% full-time. I do spend about 25 to 30 hours a week on eBay. Now that I'm doing YouTube, there's a few more hours in there for YouTube, but that has nothing to do with my eBay business. How I spend those 25 to 30 hours a week is about 12 hours a week of sourcing. I source all my items one day every week, and then once a month I go to a big flea market and I spend about 6 to 8 hours with that. So my 12-hour sourcing day is at least a couple hours of driving each way. I live in an area where there's not a lot of good thrifting, so I do have to drive to get there. So I drive about 4 hours and thrift probably for about 8 hours. And then I spend about an hour a day on average, probably a little bit less, packing my shipments and getting them to the post office. And then I spend about 10 hours a week or about an hour and a half a day on listing my items. So that includes prepping them, photoing, and listing. I'm currently doing 20 items a day, so I list 20 items every single day. It takes me about 2 minutes to photo them and get them prepped for shipment, meaning that I put a label on them and I put them in a clear poly bag and then into their box in sequential order. That way they're easy to find. It takes me about a minute to a minute and a half to list them on eBay. This is something that's drastically reduced as I've gotten much better at it, and I have all the details of the listings in my head, so I don't have to go find it, and I don't have to go look up as many comps anymore. And then I leave the other half a minute or so for prepping the items, so when I get them back from the thrift store, whether that's taking the tags off most of them, and then the ones that need to be washed, getting washed. I don't do any ironing, I don't do any steaming. If the items are wrinkled, it just is what it is. I'm not selling $1 million items here. I have an average sale price of $31.50 for the year, so they're pretty standard everyday items, and I don't think that they need to be in 100% pressed condition to be shipped out. Now that you guys know a little bit about how I've ran my business the past year, let's go ahead and jump to those numbers that I was talking about. So as you can see here, here's my numbers for all of 2023. I did a total sales of $162,447.97, and that's from 5,157 sales, and that gave me an average sale price per item of $31.50. This $31.50 is the all-in sale price for the buyer, so that's going to include any taxes and fees that eBay collects and distributes on my behalf. That's also going to be any shipping cost that the buyer pays. There are going to be a lot of fees that come out of this $31.50. So let me give you guys a breakdown of what per item I'm paying out. That way you guys have a better idea of how much profit I'm actually making on each item. So when I pack all my items, I pack them in a clear poly bag. So one of the clear zip top bags. That's how I keep them until they get shipped. So that costs 7 cents per item. Then I take that poly bag and I put that into a white poly mailer that goes into the mail with the label on it. Those cost me 6 cents each. I then have the label that goes on the front of it where I print the shipping information. That cost me 2 cents each. And then I have a number label that I use for each bag when I'm storing it in my inventory system, and those also cost me 2 cents each. So that's about 17 cents per item just in shipping label or shipping supplies. If you want to put that in the shipping supplies category, that's 17 cents for those. My average shipping cost for all my items last year was $5.44. There's some items that shipped for closer to $4, and then there's some items that ship for around $10, but this is my average for all the items, $5.44. My average cost of goods, I have one of the highest average cost of goods for people selling thrifted items, but I do pride myself in picking up very good items, quick sellers, and that sell for a good amount of money. So my average cost of goods for last year was $11.17. The average tax that comes out of these, if you look at this number up here, the $8,936.69, these are the taxes and fees collected by eBay. They distribute these to the appropriate areas without me ever having to deal with it. And that is about 5.5% of my total sales for last year. So 5.5% of $31.50 is coming out of this on average to pay for those tax and fees, which comes out to about $1.74. Now the last thing that we have to take out of this $31.50 per item before we get to make some profit is going to be the eBay fees. So I'm going to scroll down here and show you guys how the fees are broken down. So the fees are broken down by selling costs, and I am just talking about the fees part. I already told you guys about the shipping labels, so I'm only talking about the eBay fees. So here is the breakdown for the different fees that are collected by eBay. I already took this number and divided it by the number of items that I sold last year to get an average amount of eBay fees per item, which comes out to $4.34. So that does include any of the normal eBay fees as well as any of the promoted listing fees, because I promote all my items at 5%, and I think a little bit less than half of them sell via promoted listings. So I'm paying around 2 to 2.5% on average per item for that. And then my eBay fees are on average around 11 to 11.5% per item. Most people consider eBay fees around 13%, but when you are a top rated seller and after your discount on the fees, then it comes out to be about 11.5% or so. Maybe 12% on the high end. Now, if we take away the cost of goods, the cost of shipping, the cost of eBay fees, the cost of the shipping materials, the tax, away from my average sale price per item, that's going to give us an average profit per item of $8.64. Now, this doesn't factor in other costs such as my storage unit, which costs $205 a month, or gas, or wear and tear on the car. I do drive a 2015 Mitsubishi Mirage. I think it's worth probably $3, or not $3, a little more than that. It's worth about $3,000, I think, according to Kelley Blue Book. So the wear and tear on that is not going to be a very high cost for the year, because even if for some reason you took that whole cost of the car for my wear and tear, it would still not be a huge portion. And then gas, it gets like 1,000,000 miles a gallon. It only has like a 7-gallon tank, so filling it up costs almost nothing. So I really don't spend a lot of money on gas, maybe $25-30 a week, something pretty minimal. So there are still going to be some other things that come out of my total profit, but this just gives you guys an idea about how much I'm making per item on my sales. Now we can jump into the bigger numbers and the totals of all of these and get a better idea of about how much profit I'm actually making when it's all said and done. Now, if we look at my total sales of $162,000 and we take away all of the selling costs and the taxes and fees collected by eBay, remember these selling costs include both the eBay fees and the shipping labels, then that gives us this net sales number of about $103,000. So this number is not including any of my shipping supplies. This is not including any of my shipping supplies, or it's not subtracting any of my shipping supplies. It's not taking away my cost of goods, which is going to be my biggest cost for the year. I think I spent around $67,000 last year on cost of goods, so on the actual items that I was selling. So just taking that $67,000 away from this $103,000, It's already bringing us down to about $36,000. And then you can imagine there's going to be at least a few $1,000s, if not a little bit more, of other costs for the storage unit, boxes, shelvings, just random things like that, shipping supplies. So there's going to be at least a few $1,000s more in cost there. So yes, I did not make a lot of money this year as far as profit goes on my eBay business, but my goal for the year wasn't profit. My goal for the year was growth, and I did accomplish that. Not as much as I would have liked, but I'm definitely on the right track. I think the year prior I sold somewhere around 90-ish thousand in total sales and much less items. So this year I sold 5,157 items. I did some math and figured out how many items I listed for the year, and it was 5,936 items. So that gives us a excess of 779 items that I listed this year. So my store definitely grew a lot. Probably had around 1,000, maybe 1,200 items at the beginning of last year, and I'm now sitting at around just below 2,000 items. So even though, like I said, I didn't make a ton of profit, you can also count those items. If you think of those 779 items with an average buy cost of $11.17, that's another $8,700 that I put back into the business to help it grow. And like I said, my whole idea with my business right now, especially since this is part-time and this is not an income that I'm banking on to pay my bills, that I just want to grow this store to a very high cash flowing business. And in order to do that, I need to build my store up to both have strong inventory and have a large amount of inventory and quick selling inventory. So I want the items in my store to be selling within 90 days for the most part. I want them to be selling at an average sale price of about $35. And as far as the number of items that I want in my store, that is not necessarily a specific number right now. I have a goal in my head for 2024 for my gross sales amount, and I've reverse engineered it of what I'd have to do if I could bring my average sale price up to $35 an item, which I think is possible because I'm building my store up with much better items than what was in it before the year prior. So I see my average sale price continuing to climb to a point. At least at 20 items per day, I can definitely continue to grow my average sale price. I am going to have to increase my listings multiple times this year. So hopefully I can maintain the growth of the average sale price while I'm maintaining my store growth. But that is a very difficult thing to do. So the only good thing is I am still clearing out a lot of bad buys from my store. So there's tons of old inventory in my store that still sells for $5, $10, $15. As those items get flushed out and replaced with items that are selling for $25, $30, $35, then that is what's going to continue to grow my average sale price. There are lots of YouTubers that are going to say, as your store grows, your average sale price cannot grow. But if your store still has bad inventory in it, then it can. Like I said, as that bad inventory is being replaced with good inventory, as long as you're becoming a better reseller and replacing that inventory correctly, then it can grow your average sale price to a point. Now, as you buy more items every week, you're probably going to start buying worse and worse items, which is going to bring the average sale price back down. So the struggle, and what I will be focusing on very closely as I grow, is continuing to buy the best items I can and maintaining a certain level for my store that I wanted to stay at to keep my average sale price around $35. Let's jump into the monthly breakdown for 2023 so you guys can see how my sales were throughout the year. There was definitely some inconsistency with my listings. I wanted to list 20 items every single day. That didn't always happen every single day. I told you guys before, I listed 5,936 items. So that's an average of a little over 16 items per day listed. And I sold 5,157 items. So that's an average of just over 14 a day. So not a bad, if I'm listing 16 and selling 14 every day, that's not horrible, but I do want to get those numbers as close together as possible. Now let's jump into the month-over-month totals. So in January, I sold $10,700 in total sales. In February, I sold $12.4K in total sales. In March, I did $14.7K in total sales. In April, we did $13.3K. In May, we also did $13.3K. In June, we did $10.6K. July, we did $9.6K. August, we did $9.9K. And everyone normally says that there's a summer slowdown. I honestly can't remember which months I was more consistent than others. I'm pretty sure that the beginning of the year I started out really strong in January, February, March, and maybe even April. And I think around April or May, I definitely tapered off a bit and wasn't as consistent with my listings. So I don't necessarily think that it was just the summer slowdown, as people call it. I think that there was also some inconsistency with my sales that hurt me. But now as we jump into September, I think I started YouTube in September, which definitely held me a lot more accountable. And I was very, very strict with my average or with my daily listings. And I think that really helped me with my sales. In September, we did 15.3K in sales. In October, we did 17.7K in sales. November was our best month in sales. We did 18.3K. And then at the end of November, we had Thanksgiving, and I want to say there was multiple days in a row, maybe even close to 5 days to a week, that I didn't list any items, and I think that really hurt my store quite a bit. I think if I would have consistently listed 20 items every single day in November, then my December would have actually been better than November, but it wasn't due to my lack of consistency. And December, I did 16.1K in sales. So that's a breakdown for the month by month of 2023. And that is how I sold $162,000 in sales on eBay in 2023 part-time. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I respond to every single comment. I also, if you're new to the channel, I do a what sold video every single day. I show you all of my eBay sales, whether they sell for $5 or $500. I do not miss a sale. I show you guys every single one. I really pride myself on the transparency of this business. So if you have any questions, you guys are interested about anything, if you want to learn about anything, just let me know. If you want to leave ideas for videos in the comments, I'll also take a look at that. Try to make some more videos in 2024. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.